Good morning, everyone. I trust you are well. This morning's learning is dedicated in memory of Ami Bas Aryeh, Paul Casimir, Shlomo ben Shlomo, Yerim Yechiel ben Moshe Lezer, Shlomo Yechiel ben Moshe Lezer, ben Sion ben Yitzchak, Ari ben Shimon, Leah Bas Vaiva, Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Katna, Menashe Tzvi ben Zalman, Ralia Bas Avram Pinkas. Wish all the families long life. So, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us, Rachel, Deborah, and everyone else that are still joining us. Estelle, lovely to see you. One of the great conundrums that I think as parents we all have, and it doesn't matter how old your kids are now, I think it's one of the great dilemmas that we all face at one point in our lives. Good morning, Esther. Good morning, Susan and Richard and David. I can see everyone's woken up late despite gaining an hour. Good morning, Andrea from Glasgow. Good morning, Peter. Good morning, Mervyn. Okay, shall I get on with the share, or are we going to just say good morning? Okay, good morning, everyone. Lovely to see so many people joining us, and we're joined by representatives of Eco Synagogue and COP26 all the way from Glasgow. Lovely to see you. So, one of the great dilemmas that we have, and I think we all struggle with it in some shape or form, is how we are meant to bring up our kids, how we are meant to be parents, how we're meant to interact with our kids, and that of course changes from when they are toddlers to being infants to being children to being adolescents and then becoming adults. It's really can be very, very challenging, and there is a wonderful idea in this week's Torah portion that we are able to learn out. But I think the first thing to say is this idea that some may think that it's about a cookie cutter, and that we put our kids into a certain mold and then you press a button, they come out the other end and they're all perfect, or it doesn't work and isn't the case. And sometimes I think when we look at the more orthodox, we look at them and we see them all dressed the same, looking the same. We may think therefore they've been educated and brought up the same. When you look a lot closer, you start to realize that that's certainly not the case. And if ever we try to parent or educate our kids in the same way for all of them, we all know that it is exceptionally damaging, if not disastrous, when we try to treat our children the same. It starts at a young age, doesn't it? It starts with why did you give why did you give Stephen or Daniel, the chocolate, the pencil, fill in the blank, and not me? And then it gets, as they get older, why are you spending more time with, this sibling rather than this sibling? And the sibling rivalry is something which I think we have all come to grapple and struggle with, maybe with ourselves and our siblings, or maybe just with us in terms of being parents to our children. And in this is very much the theme of this week's Torah portion, the story that we're all familiar with. Abraham has two, where are we up to? Isaac has two sons, right? Isaac has two sons with Rebekah. He has a Jacob and he has an Esau. And we're told that the two, these twins, struggled even within their womb. There was this inner conflict, this tension between them, even when they were before they'd even come into the world. And we're told, and this is the most fascinating part that I want to share with you, the Medrash says that when did they struggle? When Rivka went past a place of idol worship, then Esau wanted to get out. When she went past a shul or a base of Medrash, then Yaakov wanted to get out. Now, what does that mean, friends? What exactly does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. What it means is that Yaakov and Esau, from time immemorial, from conception, were born with different natures. Okay? They were never, ever going to come out the same. They were never going to grow up the same. And sometimes what that means is we throw away the baby with the bathwater, excuse the pun. In other words, we see our children and they can't. One may be exceptionally good, exceptionally, the goody two shoes child, And then we think to ourselves and we say, well, listen, if they're, this is the one that's gonna be the good one. This is the one that I'm gonna grow, I'm gonna spend my time and invest my energies. And the other one, he's not studious, he's not interested. So, let him just, I'll cut away, just, let him do whatever he needs to do, but I'm not going to dedicate and devote so much time and energy to them. The truth is that's certainly not, that would be the wrong course of action, of course, and it's not helpful. Very often, in fact, I found that all kids struggle. It's just their struggles may be different and they may occur at different points in their lives. So, for example, the struggle may be, when you've got a teenager, for one child, they struggle with adolescence, that transitional period in their lives, they really struggle with. And yet for another, it may be, at an earlier point that they're rebellious, they don't pay attention, they're not good at school or whatever it is, or they don't listen to your instructions at home. Or it could be, that when they grow up and they were good as teenagers, then they get married, then they settle down, and all of a sudden they've not just moved apart, but they've grown apart. They want to keep a distance from you, and there's a tension, and an awkwardness in the relationship. Well, where did that come from? What's changed? So the point number one is that although children have an innate nature, I think there are always going to be struggles sooner or later. It just depends when. Second point is, even somebody who does have a nature, and we all have different natures, right? We're all born differently, and therefore we're all going to be driven and motivated and be engaged in different ways. So Yitzchak had this very struggle with his children. Rebecca in particular struggled with it, in that Yaakov was the studious one, the goody two-shoes, the one who wanted to follow in the footsteps of his father and his grandfather Abraham, and Esau was the hunter. And Yitzchak believed and had this vision that he never thought that Esau was going to be a Yaakov. He never thought that Esau could be Jacob. He never thought that he would be the studious one that would totally devote himself to prayer and to service of God in a direct way. But what he hoped was that through going out and hunting, going into the fields, living a very earthly, worldly existence, he would be able to elevate this world in a way that Jacob wasn't able to. In other words, he wanted the two to work together in harmony, that they should both be able to bring to bear their respective strengths, and together they would be stronger. They'd be able to have the spiritual side, the physical side, and unify the two, and there would be this unique synergy between them. That was the dream. And but we know that it didn't work out. Now, God forbid, it's not for us to start criticizing. We don't know the challenges, and we cannot imagine the challenges that our forefathers and matriarchs had with an Esau. But what we do know, and what we can say for certain, is that it was a failure, is that Esau didn't come out the way anyone hoped or intended. And therefore, I think there is another wonderful lesson for us to take away from today. I'm sorry, I know I'm bombarding you with a lot of information, but we'll unpack it, unravel it over the next coming days. But listen to this. The fact is that Esau didn't turn out the way his parents wanted, and this was something that Yitzchak lived with this pain and anguish the whole of his life. And Yaakov, his brother, in fact, not just the father, but the brother, lived with a thorn in his side constantly of Esau. There was that sibling rivalry, jockeying for position and knowing who should be where. And so often we find it. Isn't it interesting? When our children are in the room, the dynamics between them, when they're all there or when one's missing, it all changes. And the question is, how does everyone find their place, especially as they get older, right? Is everyone willing to allow others to have a space, to have a place, to have a voice? It's different. It's difficult, isn't it? And the key thing is that we are not, and we cannot fall into the trap of treating them all as the same. We have to try and educate each one individually, uniquely, as they are all, everyone's made uniquely. And in fact, it's a Jewish concept, that that we are told by our sages to educate a child according to his way or her way. Okay? So each person, we have to try to bring out their strengths. If somebody is artistic, don't try and make them to do, don't try and make them into an accountant. They will just rebel and revile, and they'll resent you for it. And it's something, as a parent, as I've got, adolescent kids that are growing up, it's challenging, isn't it? Because we all have this vision about the way our kids, the path our kids are going to tread, and the way they're going to turn out. And it's very, very difficult. I struggle with it tremendously. But one of the key things is to show our children and to imbue our children with this belief, this recognition that, you know what, you can be great in your own way. It may not be the same as me, but that doesn't mean you can't be your own person and find your place in life and in Judaism as a young Jewish person. There's an amazing story that I tell, and you're probably sick of hearing it. Good morning, Carol. I think have I said good morning to everyone else? Quickly, we go through the list. Good morning. Record crowd today, 17. Incredible. I hope we're keeping social distancing. So, Carol, Clarice, Eitan, Martin, Mervyn again, Peter, Andrea, David, Susan, Richard, Estelle, Deborah, Rachel. Isn't it remarkable? Isn't it fantastic? I get strength the whole of my week now just from you guys coming on, because we're keeping going despite pandemic, despite COVID, and everyone's learning together for a few minutes a day. It's remarkable. Well done to everyone. Here's the last thought, okay? And this is the story that keep with you in your top pocket, whatever you're doing, whenever those kids, whatever's happening. And it goes as follows. It's never too late to share it. So Reb Berel Wein became a great Jewish thinker, leader, historian, in fact, and when he was already established as a rabbi of repute, he was visiting a town as a guest speaker, and he went into I think it was a Jewish supermarket or something, and he found this man, and he was stacking the shelves, and he was arranging things, putting prices and things. And he said to him, "Is it you? Moshe, after all these years? I don't believe it. Shalom Aleichem." And they'd been in yeshiva together. And, he couldn't believe, Reb Berel Wein couldn't believe. He said, "I can't believe it. After all these years, tell me your story. What happened?" And he tells him his story. And it's one of those sorry stories that he didn't get married, that he didn't have children, didn't do anything, didn't become anything. He was ending up, helping run, a supermarket, a Jewish store. And Reb Berel says, "I don't get it. Explain to me something. In yeshiva, you were known, and the Anhala, the leadership of the yeshiva, the teachers, the Rebbeim, the rabbis, they all said you were destined for greatness. You were a child prodigy. They thought you were going to go on to great things. What happened? Why didn't you become a rabbi, a dean of yeshiva? You're stacking shelves." And you know what the man said? And it breaks my heart every time I tell the story. He said, "They may have thought it. They may have said it to each other. It's just a shame they never told me. It's just a shame they never told me." Friends, my dearest friends, it's so important that we make sure that we tell our children, our grandchildren, not what they're not, but what they are and what they can be. There's the greatest lesson. That is the greatest lesson, the lesson that comes from the Parsha. It doesn't mean that we tell them what they have to be. It's not that I'm telling they've got to be an accountant, a doctor, computer, a hedge fund manager, or whatever, right? But I'm telling them the potential. I see in you such great qualities, such attributes. Rav Dr. Twersky, who wrote over 20 books, he said all his books, really, they asked him how he wrote so many books, were all about one theme: lack of self-esteem. The greatest malady, he said, in our society, in our children, that they don't have that self-confidence and belief in themselves because nobody ever spoke to them. Nobody ever told them how great they could be. So please God, we're going to finish here. Please God, everyone should remember this lesson about ourselves, keep telling ourselves that we are great and we can be even greater because we're made in the image of God. And if we have a bit of God inside us, which is the spirit of God, the soul, we're capable of everything. Just remember that. Okay, so we're going to finish there. Important lesson that we take from the Parsha. Okay, and then we'll do the memorial prayer. We'll finish off with Refuah Shlema. And please, God, let's keep it up. Let's keep learning and growing and going together. And we'll see you tomorrow, please, God. Adon Olamim Zacho Es Nishmas Ami Bas Aryeh Paul Casimir Yirmiyahu Chiba Moshe Eliezer Shlomo Chiba Moshe Eliezer Ben Sion Ben Yitzchak Arab Ben Shimon Leah Bas Faivel Avram Mordechai Ben Moshe Kat Menashe Ben Tzvi Zalman Rali Bas Avram Pinkas Shalchu Li Olamam Navadaracha Mim Dasim Sesek Anafech Elamim Mitzvah Zechon Nishmasam V'Yanu Chamish Kosam B'Shalom and Amar Amen. Long life wishes. The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Refuah Shlema prayer. Mi sheberach avsein Rabbi Yaakov Yireches. Kol ha'cholim babu shanispalim babu rambus chazek Kadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachem Aleim Menachem Rafasam Yishlach Lem Refuah Shlema Nishmaim Lecholevim B'Sosh Shachizor Refuah Sanefesh Refuah Sakov Hashtag Zman Kariv V'Nomar Amen. Joanna just came on, and I have to tell you, there is a book. It's called Polishing Diamonds, a wonderful educational book about parenting. That is what we have to see. We are, and our children and grandchildren are. Every person is a diamond. They may have some rough edges, but it's up to us to polish. Please, God, we should all have the strength and the vision to be able to do so. Have a great day. Please, God, we'll see you tomorrow.